Shalom. Before I get started, I'm going to go up praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawahshi, bahasham, Rawchaa Qadash. This is the brother of Bakala Walam, here with another hopeful, edifying lesson to the elect body of Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawahshi. Do this lesson based upon the imagery that Esau depicts Jake to be, right? Because there's an image out there that was created by Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, to depict or portray Jake to be, and this is nothing new under the sun, right? There's nothing new about this imagery, and there was a time that during blackface, Esau, the self-proclaimed white man, had depicted Jake as these stereotypes, which is basically Coon, Sambo, Brute, or Mammy, right? So we're gonna get into it, and it still happens. Still, that imagery that Esau creates and puts on Jake still exists today. So I'm gonna get into this article from Jim Crow Museum, right? It says the Coon caricature is one of the most insulting of all anti-black caricatures. It says the name itself, an abbreviation of raccoon, is dehumanizing, right? As with Sambo, the Coon was portrayed as a lazy, easily frightened, chronically idle, inarticulate buffoon, right? So these two caricatures, what is caricature? You're going to find out what that means.
Caricature.
It says a caricature is a picture, description, or imitation of a person in which certain striking characteristics are exaggerated in order to create a comic or grotesque effect, right? A comic or grotesque effect. Basically, with a blackface, that's what Esau has. If we're gonna have that spoken of in this lesson, right? Blackface. It's a caricature, right? So it's exaggeration of a depiction of a person, right? A picture or description or imitation of a person in which certain striking characteristics are exaggerated in order to create a comic or grotesque effect. Like, these devils try to make our lips seem all big, like you see here, red, big, and all types of shit. Big eyed. Making fun of Jake. So that's what you see there in that picture. A caricature. That's exactly what it is. It says the Coon differed from the Sambo in subtle but important ways. It says Sambo was depicted as a perpetual child, not capable of living as an independent adult. The Coon acted childish, but he was an adult. It said the Coon acted childish, but he was an adult, albeit a good for little adult, right? So the Sambo and Coon was similar, but Sambo wasn't. He was more or less a child mind state, right? Couldn't live as an independent adult. It says Sambo was portrayed as a loyal and content servant. Indeed, Sambo was offered as a defense for slavery and segregation. It says so that was a defense that was trying to say our people were Sambo, so that was their defense of enslaving us and putting us in segregation. Because it said more or less we was deserving because of how we were. So these devils don't see us as functional human beings capable of being independent, which is a total lie due to the facts. That's basically this devil and his pseudoscience and his um destroying of history and destroying the facts. That's basically a part of his pseudoscience that the Negro man was genetically inferior, especially mentally, which is basically bullshit, right? So they say they try to justify slavery and segregation due to the caricature of Sambo. It says, how bad could these institutions have been? How bad could these institutions have been? Asked their radicalists if black people were content, even happy, being servants. It says the Coon, although he often worked as a servant, was not happy with his status. He was simply too lazy or too cynical to attempt to change his lowly position, right? Saying he was too lazy or too cynical, the Coon. So what is cynical? I'm gonna find what cynical means. It says cynical. Cynical. It says believing that people are motivated purely by self-interest, distrustful of human serenity, sincerity. Salakia, or integrity. It says concerning only with one's own interests, or typically accepted, disregarding accepted or appropriate standards in order to achieve them. So they said certain believing that people are motivated purely by self-interest, being selfish. So I guess that's why they say he was too selfish to he's too selfish to attempt, to change his position, basically, right? It says also by the 1900s, Sambo was identified with the older, docile black people who accepted Jim Crow laws and etiquette. It says whereas coons were increasingly identified with young, urban black people who disrespected people white people. Stated differently, the coon was a Sambo gone wrong, right? So now they said, which I don't, from my understanding, coons were never seen as black people that disrespect the white people, you know, but that's what they got here, right? Young urban black people who disrespect the white people, they call them coons. Which, like I said, these caricatures, Esau created these caricatures, of Sambo, Coon, the Mammy. He created these things, so he can define them, right? And I said, but we know the truth behind the Coon, the Sambo. We know the truth behind it. But these devils, they control the narrative and they define things how they want to define things. Right? It says the protocol on prototypical the prototypical movie Coon was step and fetch it and slow talking, slow walking, self demeaning, nitwit. It took his character almost a minute to say, I see be catching my feets. Nah, boss. Right? Says Donald Bogle, 1994, a cinema historian lambasted the Coon as played by Stephen Fetchit and others. So this is a movie, I guess, right? Let's see. It says Donald Bogle, 1994 publication is a revised edition of his seminal work, Tom's, right? Tom's, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks, an interpretive history of blacks in American film, right? So these was the only roles that you can play within these Edomites films. Either you was a Tom, Coon, Mulatto, Mammy, or Buck, right? Esau's films. So you only could you was one of the other. It says before its death, the Coon developed into the most blatantly degrading of all black stereotypes. The pure Coons emerged as non-account niggas, the N word, those unreliable, crazy, lazy, unhumane creatures, good for nothing more than eating watermelons, stealing chickens, shooting crap, and butchering the English language, right? So uh, Esau basically made Jake like this for real. Like these niggas out here that's literally like this, like these coons. The definition of these coons and Sambos, he created that and made you into that, and they are like that today. Like he physically made you into this caricature, this devil called, like the scripture say, he's crafty, he's cunning. Esau, he's cunning, so he created this depiction of black people, which was false, and literally made these Negroes, a majority of them anyway, into these coons, buffoons, Sambos, and brutes and mammies. He literally made you into these caricatures that was false, that he portrayed you in these films. And a lot of them, well, he started by doing it himself in blackface. Esau wore blackface, wore black makeup, and depicted these images of black people in the movies. So this is how black people are. They're lazy, meaning, they're a coon or a Sambo, you know, like that. He depicted that. That's how they see black people. And they're really coons and Sambos and mammies and brutes today, right? They exist, literally, they exist. Uh, it says the coon caricature was born during American slavery. Slave masters and overseers often described the enslaved as slow, lazy, won't push, an eye servant, and trifling. The master and the enslaved operated with different motives. The master, the master desired to obtain from the enslaved the greatest labor by any means. The enslaved desired to do the least labor while avoiding punishment. The enslaved registered his protest against slavery by running away and When that was not possible, he he by slowing work, doing shoddy work, destroying work tools, and faking illnesses. Right, these damn devils, man. You know what I'm saying? Acting like they trying to act like slavery was something that was bearable and tolerable, and you just ain't want to do the work. You know, these devils was damn barbaric, inhumane. They was inhumane and barbaric to our people, man. Just to say the least. They was acting like savages towards our people. It says slave masters attributed the slaves' poor work performance to shiftlessness, stupidity, desire for freedom, and genetic deficiencies. Right, so that's why they said they would think they said Jake was genetically inferior, right? Deficient, you were genetically deficient. So yeah, that's what these devils trying to act like slavery wasn't that bad. It was you were just doing some work and you was treated well and good and these crackers was these fucking Edomites was treating you fairly and all, but you want to bullshit in your work. You know, similar what a lot of these Negroes do today. You know what I'm saying? Basically, what these Negroes do today at currently, a lot of them, these coons at these motherfucking jobs, a lot of them like that today. They try to sit around. Like I said, he created these niggas for these coons and Sambos and Mammies and brutes. They exist today, which was when during the creation of this, you know, it was all a lie. It was just a depiction how Esau made Jake seem to be. He made them look like this. It says the amount of work done by a typical enslaved person depended upon the demands of individual slave owners and their ability to extract labor. It says typically the enslaved work from dusk to dawn, from dawn to dusk. They were sometimes granted leisure time on Saturday or Sunday evenings. However, this time was spent planting and harvesting their own gardens, washing clothes, cooking, and cleaning. A slave owner wrote, I always gave them half of each Saturday and often the whole day, at which time the women do their household work. Therefore, they are never idle, right? So there was always something to do. Slave owners complain about the laziness of their workers, but the records show that enslaved will often work hard, right? See, that's the truth. Work hard, overwork, deprived of sleep and food, right? Overwork, deprived of sleep and food. That's how these devils ran these plantations, says the brute, and brutally so, right? So like I was saying earlier, that's why they was running it. But the record shows this is truth. But the records show that the enslaved were often worked hard and brutally so. Overseers were routinely paid commissions which encouraged them to overwork the slave, right? Overwork the enslaved. On a North Carolina plantation, an overseer claimed that he was a whole whole hog man, rain or shine, a whole hog man, rain or shine, and boast that the enslaved had been worked like horses. He added, "I rather be dead than be a nigger on one of these pig plantations." Right? So he'd rather be dead than be one of you in the field working. The damn fucking Edomite said that. After the closing of the African slave trade, the price of slaves went up, thereby causing some slave owners and their higher overseers to be more careful in their use of their enslaved. Time, the time has been, wrote one slave owner, that the farmer could kill up and wear out one Negro to buy another, right? But it was not so now. Right? They had, yeah, don't believe that, they had those breeding farms, right? They had these damn breeding plantation that they just breed Jake like animals, you know. So that shit was going on. That shit was still going on. There was, you were expendable. You know, this devil will work you to death and just trade you off for somebody different to take your place. These fucking devils, man. Like I said, these niggas, these fucking devils was inhumane to us, man. To our ancestors, right? It says, wrote one slave owner, that the farmer could kill up and wear out one Negro to buy another, but it is not so now, right? Yeah, right. Negroes are too high in proportion to the price of cotton, and it behooved those who own them to make them last as long as possible. It says the enslaved are generally associated with the harvest of cotton. However, enslaved people work in many industries. Almost almost every railroad in antebellum South and the antebellum South were built in part by slave labor. Right, these railroads that you see from east to west, north to south, they trying to give credit to the Chinese or whatever. Jake built the majority of these railroads. They try to give some credit to these to the Chinese Moab. They ain't do the majority of the work. It says the enslaved worked in sawmills, fisheries, gold mines, and salt mines. They were used as deckhands on riverboats. Uh, there were enslaved lumberjacks, construction workers, longshoremen, iron workers, even store clerks. The enslaved monopolized the domestic service, right? So it was only you doing the work. The enslaved monopolized the domestic services. Some enslaved people worked as skilled artisans. For example, shoemakers, blacksmiths, carpenters, mechanics, and barbers. Right? These trade jobs. Jake was doing it. So-called Negro man, Latino. You know, that applies for all the you know. But that was our people. We was these skilled workers, which now they trying to act like it's the other way around. Esau is the skilled worker because he, through oppression and discrimination, and that's how he maintained and created those fields for himself. And those are the highest paid fields, you know. But our people were the ones doing these skilled labor jobs, right? Mechanics, electricians, carpenters, construction work, whatever you can think of. We was doing it. Our people was doing it. Esau wasn't doing none of these jobs, you know. But now it's the other way around. That Jake looked at like some in incapable. You were incapable of holding these type of jobs because they trying to say you're not uh, mentally inclined to do so, right? You're not fit to do so. Same ideology of inferior genetics. You know, that same pseudoscience, man, is being pushed through, but only by oppression and discrimination. what they call white supremacy. You know, it says these artisans were generally treated better than the enslaved in the cotton and tobacco fields. Therefore, it is not surprising that the artisans did better work. They included many ingenious me- mechanics, claimed a white colonial Georgian, and as far as they have had opportunity of being instructed, have discovered as good abilities as are usually found among white people of our colony, right? It says, let me see, because I just wanted to get into that character, these I don't want to go into, well, unless I was going into these images, the Bambi. Like I said, I was going to look at some of these images. Like I said, these images, these characters or these identities are that Esau created. They still exist today, which I think this other um, article is going to show that. Right, so it says images of click on an image to view larger version. So you see these images, they depict Jake. And Esau created these images. You know. So yeah, you see it. So they got 50 images. I'm not going through all of them. But there's another video on this article here, right? Where is this? Tumble, whatever it is. Basically, it goes into how these Edomites created this depiction during blackface. The depictions of Jake. Let's see. Put it in reading mode. It says the Coon, the Mammy, and the Brute stereotypes in black cinema, right? Because basically that's what this lesson is surrounding on, these depictions, these stereotypes which Esau created, and these stereotypes or depictions or caricatures still exist in current society. Esau, the self-proclaimed white man, has made an image for Jake to be, and that's how they are, right? Basically, you can see it in these rappers, these mainly these rappers, these rappers, or the light, basically, of course, any type of form of entertainment. That's only what Jake sees as success. For the most part, you got to be some type of entertainer, some type of celebrity. And the scripture tells you about that. In the Apocrypha, our time here is a pastime and a market for gain. Pastime is a form of entertainment. So that's how Jake sees success for the most part, entertaining their oppressor. But that's besides the fact. Going into the images of these rappers, basically, it was something that Esau created. Basically, goes along with these stereotypes of Coon, Mammy, and Brute, right? And then in Hollywood, they only have particular roles for black people. Either you can be some type of thug, some HMO, homo, or some slave, you know, like that. That's basically uh, all that they have for Jake in Hollywood in these films. Either you're a thug, you're a HMO, sodomite, or some type of slave, um, in the general sense. That's all you. That's all you are, right? It says and which is still this still is going on today, right? It says the coon, the mammy, and the brute stereotypes in black cinema. So Merriam-Webster dictionary defines stereotypes as a standardized standard standardized mental picture, standardized. The word ain't even rolling out right. Standard right, standardized, whatever. Mental picture that is held in common by members of a group and that represents an oversimplified opinion, prejudice, attitude, or critical judgment. Within the world of film, African Americans have been depicted in a stereotypical light since the very first motion picture, right? See, yeah, these stereotypes, although not as obvious today, they are not as obvious today, still exist, right? So these stereotypes are not as obvious today. They still exist. Names such as Mammy, Coon, and Brute, among others, are stereotypical categories which African Americans in films have been placed, right? Collectively, the human characteristics of African Americans in film have been that of low life forms that thrive on sex, muscle, and stupidity, right? So you see these today, man. I'm just look up this. I'm gonna look up Brute because I don't know if they're gonna. They probably would depict this talk about it in this article. I'm gonna just still look it up. Brute, cause basically that goes into these thugs today. These thugs, gangbangers, and drug dealers you see on your TV. This these this so called music and shit. That's the that's what Jake is, a brute. These like you hear a lot of these rappers. They say they are savage, they are animal, they a beast, and all that. More or less, you a brute. It says brute is as a savagely violent person or animal. So that's how Esau portrays you. You see on these what is this, like MTV, VH1, BET, and the like. These movies, like I was saying, that's only the roles that Jake can get. Either you're a brute, a thug, drug dealer, ruthless, heartless fiend on camera. You know, that's you, an animal as opposed to a human being. Yeah, that's what you is. It says characterized by an absence of reasoning or intelligence. So that's how these devils look at Jake or Brute, and that's what you see. That's why they give them all that money, because they that's the depiction that they want Negroes to be. Everybody see Negroes as some type of brute, savage beast, void of reason or void of reason and intelligence. Just a savage beast, and that's how these niggas are in the streets. They even they really like that. Back in what I was saying like earlier, that Esau created these caricatures, right? He created the Mammy, he created the Brute, he created the Coon, the Sambo, and you see, just like it says in this article here, these stereotypes, although are not obvious today, it's not obvious, but they still exist. They still exist, and like I said, these rappers fall in the category of a brute. You know, they still got these coons and mammies that Esau created. Literally, he created these niggas this way because he's cunning. He got you brainwashed into thinking this is how you supposed to be behaving. This is the image that he gave you, right? It says names such as, I'm gonna start at the top. Names such as Mammy, Coon, and Brute, among others, are the stereotypical categories which African Americans in films have been played. Collectively, the human characteristics of African Americans in film have been that of low life forms that thrive on sex, muscle, and stupidity. You see all those three categories are there today. What you see on sex, you see these women, ass, titties out, Salaki my French, body parts exposed. That's all you see on bouncing around. These dudes, these males up here trying to show off their body, muscles or whatever. And they doing a bunch of stupidity, man. That's going on today. Just cut on your TVs and you see it. Sex, muscle, stupidity, that's going on today. The question being examined are why, after years of African American attempting African Americans attempting to gain equality, do these stereotypes still exist in modern film? What are the roots of these stereotypes? It says finally, what can be done to change the perception of African Americans in film? It says this essay will dive into the history of the people and the films. Will dive into the history of the people and the films where these stereotypes originated. Films such as Birth of a Nation, Training Day, Gone with the Wind, and Emperor Jones, Monster Ball, imitates Imitation of Life, Jerry Maguire, and Bamboozle, among others, give a clear depiction, a clear display of the aforementioned stereotypes and how they have evolved over the past 100+ years. Right, the actors who portray these characters are almost as important as the affected films. Actors such as Lincoln Perry, Willie Best, Manton Moreland, Cuba Gooding Jr., Denzel Washington, Hattie McDonald, uh, McDaniel, Holly Berry, Queen Latifah, Paul Robinson, to name a few, depict these stereotypical roles, which led people to believe these stereotypes were and are the which led people to believe these stereotypes were and are art imitating life, right? So like I was saying, these roles, they only give these particular roles to black people in Hollywood to make it seem like this is art imitating life, but it's not, right? These devils got it backwards. They have life imitating art. They got you imitating what you see on the films, what you see on TV. This is how you supposed to be. Says Dr. David Pilgrim of Ferris State University uh, describes the stereotype of a coon as a lazy, easily frightened, chronically idle, inarticulate buffoon. The coon originated out of slavery. Many slave owners believed the African American Many slave owners believed the African Americans worked for them were low life forms and could not do the requested work because they did not have the brain capacity to stay in constant thought or concentration. From their actions, slaves were seen as lazy, dumb-witted, and scared. All of these characteristics make up what we now know as the Coon. Many African Americans would agree that the Coon is the most demeaning of all African American stereotypes in film. The truth, during that time, slaves did not want to do the work because they did not feel as though they were being treated fairly. Right. Laziness came from from working 20 hours a day, 6 days a week. Their fright came from not knowing when the overseer would beat them for not doing the job the way the overseer saw fit. They never felt as though their work would be seen as good enough. Their slow or dumb-witted nature came from attempting to speak a language that was not their native tongue, right? And it was a and you could be put to death for learning how to read English, man. That's these devils, um, what is it, depriving you of knowledge by giving by putting you to death if you was found able to read, man. They were or you know what I'm saying? And that's basically what it was. You would be put to death if you found out how to read. What kind of shit is that, man? And now they trying to say you too dumb and slow. But these devils, you know, they was saying, hey, you can't read books, you can't learn, and then when the time progressed that you was able to learn, these devils oppressed you and discriminated against you and gave you the secondhand, outdated material to keep you behind. And then they want to say that you are slow, dumb, and these devils got all type of methods too. That's the reason why they're poisoning your food and water, which these what is it? These soft metals that they find in your food and water. These devils did it strategically because it fucks with your neurological, it fucks with your brain neurologically, right? Chlorine and what is that shit? Fluoride in your water, for example, and all these different soft metals, lead, aluminum, you know, barium, all these things, and cadmium, all these things that this devil put on that through these chemtrails, that you find all of your food now, because these devils doing it strategically, because it fucks with people neurological, your brain function. It makes you slow. You know what I'm saying? These devils are clever, man. Esau clever, man. He's a clever devil, man. A fucking clever demon, man. It says their slow and dumb-witted nature came from attempting to speak a language that was not their native tongue. At the time, it was illegal, right? See, it was illegal to teach a slave how to read or write. Their education on the language and culture was slow to shackle crawl, right? Yeah, they try to keep your ass dumb down. Or if you know what I'm saying, you want to learn how to read, you learning how to read, they're gonna put you, if you knew how to read, so like, yeah, they'll put you to death, man. These devils. Donald Bogle, a cinema historian with a major focus on African Americans in cinema, wrote about wrote about his disgust with the portrayal of the coon stereotype in his book, Toms, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks, an interpretive history of blacks in American films, stating before his death, the coon developed into the most blatantly disgrading of all black stereotypes. The pure coons emerged as a the pure coons emerged as non-account nigger, the N word, those unreliable, lazy, unreliable, crazy, lazy, subhuman creatures, good for nothing more than eating watermelons, stealing chickens, shooting crap, and butchering the English language. It says the most notable for his portrayal of the coon stereotype was Lincoln Perry, known to most as Step and Fetch It. Perry's Perry's play Perry's played the same coon in all this film. Depict Despite becoming the first African American to headline a movie and one of the first African Americans to earn over $1 million, Perry was seen as someone who brought down his race. See, right? See that the same shit going on today. They gave this nigga Perry Step and Fetch It character. This nigga was the first African American to headline a movie and one of the first African Americans to earn over $1 million, right? So they got this image of this coon that this dude, what was his name, Lincoln Perry. Let's see how they got any depictions of this guy, right? But yeah. See, they paid this dude to be some coon in the film to portray the image of black people. This is who you supposed to be, some coon, right? This nigga here, right? This nigga here, and they still exist today. Going back to these rappers, for example, these coons exist today, and this life and this art imitating life, and there's really niggas like this, man. These step and fetches niggas, man. There's niggas really like this in life, coons and Sambos, cause it's life imitating art. It was a depiction, it was a image, a caricature that Esau created to portray a race of people, right? So this dude, they're step and fetches, coons and Sambos and Mammies, brutes. They exist today, just like this says in the article earlier, but it's not obvious, but they exist today. It said Perry was seen as someone who brought down his own race. His characters were always abused verbally and physically. It says Perry's most notable films were alongside Will Rogers. In these films, Perry would play more of an animal than human, following Roger around like a dog while shucking and jiving at the top of his hat. Boggle said of Perry, that's what these niggas is, shucking and jiving, stepping, fetch it niggas, man. His appearance, too, added to the caricature. He was tall and skinny and always had his head shaved completely bald. Yeah. He his invariably invariable invariably worn clothes that were too large for him. He invariably wore clothes that were too large for him, Salakia, and took look and that looked as if they had been passed down from his white master, right? His grin was always very wide, his teeth very white, and his eyes very widened, his feet very, very long, and his walk very slow, his dialect very broken, right? This is a depiction that an image that they said this is how niggas is, so they pay this nigga quite a bit of money he was the first one to be get a role in major films. Some stepping fetch it Coon nigga. Cause this is how they wanted black people to be portrayed. This is how black people are. Daniel Lieb, from his book, from Sambo to Super Spade, from Sambo to Super Spade, the black experience in motion pictures added. Fetch It became identified in the popular imagination as a dialect speaking, slump shoulder, slack jaw character who walked, talked, and apparently thought in slow motion. The Fetch It character became his lethargy, lethargy only when he thought that a ghost or some nameless terror might be present, and then he moved very quickly indeed. What is word? If I'm pronouncing it right. Lethargy, lack of energy or enthusiasm. So he started moving fast if he seen a ghost or something, or whatever. It says from Perry's legacy spawned other actors who wanted to follow his footsteps, like Willie Sleep and Eat Best and Matten Moreland. Both of these men were ridiculed in Spike Lee's film Bamboozle. Best and Moreland Best and Moreland-like characters were played by actors Tommy Davidson and Salvin Glover. The film is a portrait of what is wrong with race within America, both in the early 1900s today. Glover and Davidson played two homeless men who used their educated feet and slick, smooth talk to get into television. Their dancing and singing and uh, the the ninjering, whatever. How you fucking pronounce this shit? Pronounce this. Denigrate. God damn. Denigrating speech led to the murder of Glover's character after he was kidnapped and forced to tap dance for his life as gunshots were fired at his feet. Today's depiction of the Coon is less blatant but still offensive. Cuba Gooding Jr. portrayal of football player Rod Tidwell in the movie Jerry Maguire has been the closest image of the stereotype since the 1960s. Gooding dancing and singing, creation of words, and consistent wide smile showing those pearly whites is reminiscent of Lincoln Perry and Matten Moreland. His Oscar attempts, his Oscar acceptance dance and celebration did not help his cause. Right? Yeah, like you said, that's what it is, man. That's only how they get these Negroes today. They only get their fame, success through the likings of Esau. Whatever Esau wants them to do, they do it for that money. Like the scripture said, the love of money is the root of all evil. These niggas will do anything for that money, man. They'll do anything for that bag. You know, these images and these caricatures are are still happening in today's society. Since that day, Gooding has been typecast as a coon in American society. Right, it's fucking coons. The term "mammy" was orated to the world in the 1927 film Jazz Singing, starring Al Jolson, which I think this is a Edomite, Al Jolson. In the final scene of the movie, Jolson sings the song "My Mammy" while in blackface. Right, this is the Edomite here, which entered the term into the world's vernacular. Mammy, I mean, that which entered the term into the world's vernacular. Says Mammy is described as a happy, always smiling, hard working, overweight care caregiver for white slave masters, for white slave masters' children. Right. So that's what these black women. That's what they are today. I think this is it right here. You see them. You see them like this today. I don't know why. You fucking devils. There it is. Fucking with the image. This is this blackface. This guy what's his name? Jolson. Al Jolson is the Edomite trying to appear like a Negro. You see with the big smile. That's the movie Jazz Singer, right? See, Al Jolson, and like these the caricatures were depicted by Esau. This is how Esau saw or wanted Jake to be looked as, right? This is how he wanted you to be looked as, So Sambo, Coon, Mammy, Brute. This is you, lazy, good for nothing, slow, And like I said, he created these images, and you see it in these people today, literally. These Coons and Sambos and Mammies and Brutes, they are walking around today through the Esau Edom's witchcraft, his sorcery, his enchantments, through film, you know, mind control, the tactics. He got these coon Sambos, Brutes, and Mammies living today amongst you Negroes. That goes for Latinos and Native Americans too. They got them. They got them. They which was something that was a false image that he created. They live today, literally. It says the term "mammy" was orated, o orated. Damn, the term was orated to the world in the 1927 film "The Jazz Singer" starring Al Jolson. The final scene of the movie, Jolson sings the song. This is a so-called white man, Edomite, "My Mammy," while in blackface, which entered the term into the world's vernacular, mammy, right? So he created this term, mammy, and his definition of it is described as a happy, more or less, he made it famous, and he gave it a definition according to his liking, right? Mammy is described as a happy, always smiling, hardworking, overweight caregiver for white slave masters' children. Like I said, these Negro women, they like that, man. They are more what is it like they're more protective of these Edomites than even their own kind, even their own children. There's articles that tell you that's how Mammy is. they neglect their own children in order to take care of masters Esau's children, but she'll neglect her own. You know, that's another character trait of the Mammy. And you see that in these Negro women, man. They'll look out for their master, man. They on guard like a dog, watchdog for their master. Always. This is Marilyn, uh, Bearbo, co-author Cassandra, and the sister and the sisters. The hold up, it's like